When you walk up to the vehicle with the key, it senses the key, and I have it set to where it will automatically unlock the doors and relock as I walk away. So you can see this light shines here on the side. It says the Infiniti name, and then it has these lines here, kind of like wings or water flowing. They're kind of like an approach light. I mean, not really. They're mostly an accent light. So let's go ahead and hit the unlock button because that light went away. All right, so there I hit it, unlock again. So you can see that light there on the side. It's just mostly for looks. It's not very functional, but you do have the headlights and the tail lights on, and some of the interior lights are also on. When you turn the headlight switch to the complete off position, it still has these daytime running lights shining here in the front, as well as an illuminated badge. But the problem with this is that these lights they do cast a fair amount of light in front of the vehicle, so you could potentially think that you have your headlights on when you don't. So there's no tail lights, there's no side markers, anything like that. Your headlights are not on, but you might be driving around thinking that it's on. So now I have the parking lights on, and the parking lights are basically the same lights that we just saw, and they have the little segments here across the front, looking really nice. And they're in this high position, very easily seen by other drivers. There's also an illuminated Infiniti badge, and it's kind of like has this three-dimensional effect. See, it kind of goes in there a little bit, outlines the shape of the symbol, but it has like this little insert right here. It's kind of neat. I don't know if you can see that. So yeah, those daytime running lights are kind of bright. There's also an amber side marker here in the front. The tail lights wrap around to the side of the vehicle, serving as a side marker as well. They're all both red. All the lights actually are red back here, but you can see it has like this style. Hopefully you can see that. Let me bring the brightness down. So you can see these lines right here. Once again, they're emphasizing a flow state. And then you have the little segments here across the middle. Really stylish and nice looking, especially if you take the time to look at them and appreciate what they did. They did it's not just regular bulky lights. We do have some details here in the lights. Nice red glow as well. Tag light is also on. The turn signal basically takes that white light and turns it to an amber color, and then it is pretty bright. So, and it's in that high position so other cars can see it nicely. It's amber in color, and this is that same light that's segmented. Nice and bright, high position, looks good. There's also a turn signal indicator here on the side mirror. It's amber in color. It's visible from the front, the side, and the back. And back here, the turn signal is an amber light, and it is at the base of the tail lights. So it's a different color. It's separate from the actual lights, the tail lights themselves. It's additional light. And I think that looks good, and it's in decent height off the ground as well. It's not too low. Now the reverse lights are in the inner portion of the tail lights, and the brake lights, there's actually a third brake light at the top of the glass as well. Okay, so there's the light in front of the vehicle with the headlights. Let's see, there's off. There's completely off, and there's some lights shining in front of the vehicle. So let's go ahead and turn the actual headlights on so you can see the difference there. So these are the low beams. So this one has a projector system, and the low beams is actually two lights here. There's a lower one and a higher one. The actual one, the one on top, is actually the low beams, which is interesting. And it appears to be two lenses there, so it might be two lights behind those lenses, projector lights. It's rather a small light, but it's very sharp and focused. So it focuses the light below the eyes of the oncoming traffic. So if I stand back here, I can look directly at the lights, and they're a little bit bright, but they're not blinding me. So I dip down the camera and get to a certain point. Right there is where the cutoff is. This is about 3 feet off the ground. So it's aiming down, and there's a clear cutoff, as we'll see when we drive down the road. Now let's switch to the high beams here. And the high beams are that lower projector system. So now both of them on both sides are illuminated. And this adds an additional light, which I like to see. I like the when the high beams are actually a separate light that turn on, so that way we have additional light that they give her better headlights and better pattern and all that stuff. You can see little reflections right here on the ground in front of the vehicle. We'll see, hopefully it's overlapped enough to where it's not patchy on the road, but we'll find out. The cargo light is just the single light here in the center. Now, it is fairly bright. It's actually two little lights in that lens, it looks like. And the good thing about it is that it's bright. And we do have a small cargo area. So it does a halfway decent job of illuminating this area. We do have some backlit buttons here to the right side here. There is a compartment here, which has no light in it, but you can see in there fairly well. So yeah, the positional light and the brightness of it seems to work well. It's not excellent, but I think two of them would have been a little bit better. But that high position in the center and brightness makes it to where it's, I would say, adequate. The inside of the back door, there's no puddle light or anything. Kind of surprised with a vehicle like this. There is some ambient light, and I have it set to green. So everywhere you see green is here in the pocket, here, on that speaker grill, and then there's that line. That can be customized to different colors, and I'll show you that when we get to the screen. There is an illuminated sill plate, and the lights here are coming from either side of the sunroof, and they do a decent job. They're, once again, fairly bright, and the pattern is good. They illuminate the floor fairly well. And there's the controls back here, and USB ports there. Cup holders are not illuminated. This compartment has no light in it. The third row has a single light, or actually two lights in the same little housing there. But yes, does, once again, because of the brightness and everything, it does a decent job. Not excellent, but it does a decent job. You do have some backlit buttons back here for the seat controls. The inside of the driver's door, once again, no puddle light. There's no approach light. I mean, it has accent light. It kind of looks like an approach light, but it's not really functional. So we have no real approach light. We don't really have a puddle light here. It's kind of surprising with a vehicle this expensive. Okay, so we have the green lights here in the door, just like the back, and then the backlit buttons here and here. Illuminated sill plate, and you can see the green light is in the floorboard. It's in this compartment here, which is great. But as you'll see, there's some more areas which need more light. Okay, so I have the door open with the interior lights on here in the front, and you can see these lights mostly shine in the lap area, so they do a fairly decent job of not blinding the driver and stay focused on the center area here. Let's go ahead and shut the door and see what we're left with. So you can see that everything that's green is customizable. There's a little green accent there, that compartment under there. The floorboard has that green light. So there's a lot of screens in this vehicle. So there's a brightness adjustment right here. So we can increase and decrease the brightness. So there's the super bright. Now I wish that these door lights would have the super brightness separate, like you can have these on all the time, but as you adjust the brightness, it basically adjusts everything, including the door lights. And you know, let's say I want it to be dim like this, but then the switches here on the door get very dim sometimes, especially during the day. I can barely see them. So I wish that was separate, but as it is, it's pretty good. Let's go ahead and go the full range there, and you can see those lights, kind of those line lights, kind of water flowing lights there, nice and bright. But once you start getting to the dimmer levels, they're kind of not as noticeable. And the same thing with the ambient light. The ambient light is, I have it on maximum brightness. It may look bright on camera, but it's actually, for a maximum brightness, it's not that bright, especially some of the other areas like floorboard and stuff, and especially depending on what color you have, it's more or less noticeable, you know. But yeah, so right in here, I like those flowing lines, but I wish they were a little bit brighter. It has the Infiniti name over here, illuminated. Steering wheel controls are good. Here's the screen. And that screen there. And let's go ahead and pull up the camera system here. Because actually I got the brightness way too high. Let me turn the brightness down. So yeah, I have to turn the brightness really high just so you can see some of the lights, because it's not very bright. So when I turn the camera on, it's too bright. So that's, let's see, that's about, right there is about what it looks like to my eyes right there. So it's pretty bright. I can see all the way around the vehicle and no problem with the camera. Same thing with the rear view camera. So now I gotta adjust the brightness again. This camera right here is not overly bright, and I can still see when there's cars in different places. Now, if it's like super dark, then you're not going to see much, which you wouldn't normally see with a regular rear view mirror. Okay, so right in here we have some backlit buttons, but the cup holders are completely dark. Cell phone charger, completely dark, except for these two USB ports that are illuminated. Probably can't even see what I'm talking about. It's so dark in here. I'll turn on the light in a second because I want to show you one more thing. This this huge cool box, where it's also like a storage compartment, is also dark. So now let me turn on the interior lights. And even with the interior lights on, we can barely see in here. So yeah, it definitely needs a light. I'm surprised that it doesn't have a light. You know, some kind of accent light around the cup holders. This isn't a cheap vehicle. So, and there's a lot cheaper vehicles, like, $25,000 vehicles that have a lot of stuff that this vehicle doesn't have. Very surprised. Glove compartment does have a light. Kind of surprised it has one at this point. It has a lot of pluses, but there's some really big misses, and it's almost like they didn't really give it much thought to the usability of the vehicle. It seems like the features that it does have is designed to sell and to promote on commercials and stuff, but the actual usability of the vehicle wasn't really tested, wasn't really thought about, is what it seems like. Could be wrong. Maybe if you worked on this vehicle and you are a designer of the vehicle, let me know what's going on with this, why it is the way it is. So yeah, these lights up here, you can tap them individually and have a reading light. And luckily, all these are backlit, including the light that turn on the interior lights, unlike some vehicles. There is like an emergency roadside assistance button here. When you press it, it opens up this cover, and then it's the full bright light right there. It's kind of neat. And the visor has a mirror with a light, which the light kind of shines right in my face, which I guess that's the intent. So yeah, that rear view camera is really good. And the camera system's good. I mean, let's go ahead and look at the navigation map here. Turn the brightness down once again. So even at nighttime, you can have the GPS, the full satellite imagery, which is really cool. But let's go ahead and look at the regular nighttime view here, which is basically going to match over here. But yeah, that satellite imagery is very impressive. In the second row, there is a green light that's just under the center console. It's easy to miss from other angles, but looking at it from this angle, you can see it. Here's what the climate control buttons look like back here in the back seat, second row. And here's this little screen. And with the interior lights on, it's a little bit of a glare, but especially on camera. But you can see you can control the climate, seat massage. So there's a climate there, which is basically redundant from that. That's easier to get to. And then you have the ventilated and heated seat controls here. And then you have seat adjustments, which is pretty cool. And then you can adjust the right one or the left one. Go back home. Go over this way. Seat massage. So we can turn that on. And we can adjust the right side. Let's go ahead and see if we can turn it on. Oh yeah, because I had the door open, it's not going to turn on and everything. Alright, there's settings, brightness, contrast, screen timeout. We're going to go ahead and set that to 10 minutes, I guess. But yeah, kind of interesting little screen. It looks like somebody just left an iPad sitting here, but it is actually a little screen to make adjustments to the seats and everything. In the settings, there is a category called Colored Ambient, and that is where you'll find the ambient color adjustments. Now you can turn on and off the front and rear independently from each other if you'd like to do that. You can also link it to the ProPilot system, so green and blue, you know, going back and forth. Now the only issue with that is it's not going to be really visible during the day. The ambient lights in this vehicle are, you really have to have a dark environment for you to even see them, even at maximum brightness. So it does have different categories for the colors here. So spring right here has pink cloud. Right now I have it on green, but let's go to pink cloud. You can see it transitions the color there. The next one is yellow sun. Has a slow transition to the next color. And then we saw the fresh green. Then it has Fuji flower. It's kind of like a real light purple. Really nice looking color. It's not very strong. See, the brightness really is the issue. It has a brightness setting here, but even at maximum brightness, it's kind of hard to tell. Only in the most extreme dark environments can you see the colors. Next one is summer. So you have green grass, yellow firefly, reflected blue. That looks really nice. And lilac flower. So similar colors as the spring. So the next one is autumn, and it has sunset red. That's nice. You can see that pop out a little bit more. And it has vermilion leaves. It's kind of like an orange. Ginkgo. And then orange down here. It's a different shade of orange apparently. Alright, so the next one is winter. And then you have winter frost, which is like an off-white, what it looks like. Camellia pink, kind of like a desaturated pink. And this is a light blue. It's called snow blue. That looks good. And then the ice gray, which looks a little green to me. Alright, so, and then at the bottom it says additional. So we can hit that, and then we can just basically customize across this color bar here what we want. So just kind of hit the one you want. There's like a hot pink in here, and that stands out a lot. So we'll go ahead and choose that, see what it looks like. And then I had it on a bright green before, but yeah, you have different transitions here. You go with the dark blue, that looks good. So yeah, you can kind of customize the color here, and then the brightness once again is down here. And you can, you know, bring it down quite a ways. So here's some footage of the dash cam, both front and back at night. See what it looks like. It does a decent job. It's just, of course, if there's not much light, then you're not going to see a whole lot. But it does give you, in the event of an accident or something like that, it gives you some kind of information there, which is very helpful. And a lot of dash cams, they'll have a flat profile, and that way you can get more detail out of a flat profile image than if you had like a high, you know, saturation or whatever. So that's why it kind of has that flat profile. It's just kind of a flat image. It doesn't have, it's not like colors aren't popping or anything like that. It's closer to like a black and white image, but it still has color, and that's for clarity. Okay, so I have the headlight pattern on a fence here, so you can see through it and you can see the actual pattern. So there's the high beams, there's the low beams. Now there's a little bit of a jaggedness right in here, which is supposed to be a little shadow that lines up with the oncoming lane. We'll see how that works. But yeah, it's I'm kind of interested, you know, because these look like they're very impressive headlights. You know, looking at them, it has the very sharp 4 basically dual projectors. But sometimes there are some disappointments with expensive vehicles for some reason. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the automatic high beams right now so we can stay focused on the low beams. So you can see that shadow is supposed to line up with the oncoming lane, but it also kind of gets on this lane a little bit. And it's not a razor sharp cutoff. As we noticed when I dipped the camera down, you can see that shadow's halfway on this lane and halfway on the other lane. So yeah, it's supposed to be all the way on the other lane on a straight road like this. Now, yeah, when I dipped the camera down, it was like, it was still bright, and then all of a sudden it got brighter. So the cutoff isn't razor sharp, which is not a big deal. But it just kind of shows that a really bright light, a very bright light, has a really sharp cutoff. You can really tell. Now, it could be that this one, you know, they want to have a little bit of a blur between on the cutoff there and have a transition. But you can see the lights are they kind of bounce around a little bit. Yeah, it does appear to have the auto leveling function. So as I floor it, it looks like it pushed them down a little bit. It's basically just about the way all of them work, the auto leveling system. If you have a heavy load in the back, or if you floor it or something, it'll push them down. But as you're just driving, they're not going to stay level. They're going to bounce all over the place. Especially with a tall vehicle like this, you know. Okay, so hopefully there's not very many cars on this road. And check out the the high beams here. Yeah, okay, so the low beams aren't super impressive. They're okay, but not that great. Okay, now the high beam. Okay, so the high beams are good. That makes up for it right there. So yeah, let's bring it back down because of that car. But yeah, that was pretty impressive. The high beams are adding quite a bit of light and really kind of solving a lot of the problems that the low beams are having here. Okay, so yeah, the distance is good. There's not a lot of patchiness, and we can see on the sides of the road, I can see the trees in the distance. Yeah, because the trees are a little bit ways off the road, so this is a little bit more challenging than the average country road. But yeah, the low beams, not very impressive. They're okay, adequate. The high beams are actually pretty good. Yeah. Hopefully you can see that. The trees in the distance. The road is illuminated nicely. You know, the distance down the road is good. So it just kind of eliminates that whole patchiness that we're seeing that's halfway on this side and halfway on the other side. The high beams just solve all those problems. But yeah, I wonder if it's just an alignment issue. Maybe the low beams need to be adjusted. But still, they just don't seem that impressive to me, the low beams. They're just kind of like, you know, any cheap vehicle would have low beams like this, really. And this is a very expensive vehicle. So yeah, there's a huge shadow in front of the vehicle right now. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I can barely, I mean, that's not good. I mean, the distance is horrible right now. I don't know if you can see that. But yeah. So yeah, the low beams pretty much on the, you know, middle grade to low end. I mean, they're not that bad, but I think mostly they just need to be adjusted. See, I don't know if you can tell. It's like maybe 100 feet in front of the vehicle is dark. It doesn't make any sense. But the high beams make up for it. So, but you can't drive around, you know, with your high beams on all the time, because you'll blind people. So you have to have decent, I mean, usually using your low beams because you're around other cars. So yeah, kind of disappointed here because $112,000 vehicle, and I shouldn't be that disappointed with the low beams. I shouldn't be that disappointed by not having puddle lights like $25,000 cars have, or you know, that kind of stuff. So, or illuminated cup holders, or ambient lights that have you know, the maximum brightness is basically the minimum brightness I would have them at. So yeah, there's some things about this vehicle that makes me question how much they actually put into it, how much thought they actually put into it as far as the nighttime usability, you know. There's some fancy features that make good commercials, but actually a person buying this and using it at night, I wonder how long they actually tested it as far as using it at night, because it doesn't seem like, it seems like they would, you know, make some changes, you know. Because and this is not just this vehicle. This is typical. This is why I do night videos, because you find out what the vehicle, what the designers emphasized. If they emphasize the user experience, or they emphasize the commercials and the ability to sell the vehicle, you know. So there's a couple things that makes me think that they just didn't put enough effort into it, you know. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments about this vehicle. $112,000. Okay, keep that in mind, and that's where I have to take into account that this is not a cheap vehicle. If it was a cheaper vehicle, if it was like 50,000 or something, it's like, okay, you know, this is okay. But when you're talking about a $112,000 vehicle, you're like, okay, you know, during the day it's good, but at nighttime there's some things that are lacking for sure, and it might be a deal breaker for you. It might not have any bearing whatsoever on your decision. But let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.